back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we are talking about the NBA draft. We're also talking about some of the NBA trades that have taken place over the last couple days. And then we'll be touching briefly on some of the NBA trades that actually happened on draft night and how I think that actually either works or kind of hurts teams that actually did make those trades. Before we actually jump into the content, let me first and foremost thank Anchor for being our platform, which is now Spotify podcast, so you can catch us on there. And then also, too, I just want to go ahead and let you know that this is actually video streamed as well as on YouTube, where you can follow us there at Real Talk Sports with Rico. You can see those links below in the show notes, both on Spotify and on YouTube here. And just to let you know that we do drop content every Sunday and or Monday for the show here. And guys, if you're looking at the live podcast, you're seeing the new gear here, Real Talk Sports with Rico. Definitely make sure you hit me up in the comments there if you're looking to get some of the gear. But without further ado, man, let's jump into the show. One of my favorite parts of the year is the NBA draft. And personally, I think that this, to me, might be one of the best NBA drafts in quite some time. I definitely think that for sure it's one of the deepest drafts that we have here. And while I'm actually breaking down the draft, guys, I got something really special for you guys. I got some NBA 2K23 gameplay with Victor Wembanyama going against the Nuggets here, guys. I definitely think you guys will like this here. Could be potential for the Western Conference Finals down the road one day here. So throw that in the background, guys. So if you are checking out the show, make sure you definitely like and subscribe there and check out the video. But yeah, let's jump into it, man. First round, starting with Victor Wembanyama. And I got a chance to see LeBron James when he was drafted, got a chance to watch some of his high school games when they were on ESPN. Do remember when I watched his first game on TNT against Sacramento, and I was like, man, this guy is the guy when he scored 25 against the Kings, and it was a nonchalant, and you knew he was only going to get better. And Victor Wembanyama, I think that when people look back at this particular draft, they're going to look at Victor Wembanyama and say that this guy was the generational talent. I know that we say that often. I know that was the label with Zion Williams, and you guys have heard me talk about Zion. I love him a lot. He's shown that he can definitely be a force in the paint. He plays with the physicality and everything like that. But I said, coming into this thing, I was like, hey, this guy reminds me a lot of what Blake Griffin is or was in the NBA. I knew he was going to be an explosive athlete, but I knew with that type of frame, he was going to have to learn how to shoot the ball, or else he was going to be in a situation where he was going to have a lot of injuries, and it was going to be tough for him to really get to this prominent level that so many people had labeled him as. And you see it right now. But Victor Wembanyama, barring any injuries, I don't see any flaw that would show me that he's not going to be looked at as a top prospect in this generation to come. Like, I think he's that generational player like LeBron James, like a Michael Jordan. Like, he's that type of guy, because you've never seen a guy like this that's 7'4", that can rebound the ball. He blocks shots at a high level. He can shoot the ball from anywhere on the court, and he handles the ball like a guard. You look at Ralph Sampson, who was 7'4", coming, into the league, playing for Houston with Hakeem Olajuwon. That was a different breed of center that you've never seen before at that height. Obviously Ralph Sampson was great with the back to the basket and dunking the ball and things like that. Terrific lob player and stuff like that. But there's never been a player like this that can step out at this height and play basically like a Kevin Durant or a Steph Curry. Like, it's never been seen before. And the only question is, will he be able to stay healthy? Over the last couple seasons, you're looking at some of the top bigs. You're looking at Nikola Jokic, he hasn't really had any major injuries at his size and being able to play inside, outside. Joel Embiid has taken some injuries. He came into the league injured with the foot and the knee and everything else. Like, he's definitely been a guy that has been banged up. That's definitely concerning. Yao Ming, if you remember him back in the day, he was definitely a trailblazer. But what happened to him? He messed up his foot, and then that pretty much took his career. Shaquille O'Neal, obviously, he was a generational talent at that center position. He was great for all those years, and then his body began to tear down, but he still, got the Hall of Fame career and everything like that. But this Victor Wembanyama kid, I know he doesn't have a whole bunch of height, but I think that for sure this guy's going to be an instant impact. You put him out there with Greg Popovich here, who is, to me, one of the best coaches, I think, of all time, and GM, CEO, manager, however you want to look at him. And the Spurs don't miss. When they get the number one pick, they do not miss. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, they've done it with Kawhi Leonard, Ginobili, right? This is another guy that I think that they're definitely going to hit on. Don't have a problem with the Spurs taking this. Again, I think you're going to look back at this particular draft and say that this guy was generational. Next up is the Hornets, and they had Brandon Miller at pick number 2. Got a chance to watch Brandon Miller play for the University of Alabama. This guy was the consensus SEC Player of the Year. He was the SEC MVP as well. This guy was absolutely dynamite here in his 37 appearances, put up 18.8 points per game, 8 rebounds a game, 2 assists. He had just about under a steal a game, but more importantly, he shot 38.4% from 3, won 7.5 attempts here, and he had registered at least 20 points or more in 14 games or so. This guy, stellar. Okay, this guy is stellar. He can shoot the ball. His mechanics are beautiful. He has a high level of vision as well, and ball handling terrific at um, pick and roll plays as well. Defensively, he's very engaged. And I would say that this guy does compare a lot to what a Paul George or Brandon Ingram. He definitely has that comparison there to go along with, maybe some people say, like a Buddy Hield. Excuse me, he has shades of a Buddy Hield. And I can see that a little bit with the way he shot the ball. But I love the way he was just engaged, really. I think he played hard. And I think the one play that really sticks out to me is there was a play, I think, where they were going against San Diego State, I want to say, that eventually made it to the Final Four. And they were beating Alabama. And there was a play where the ball had got ripped. I think he had got ripped. He got it stolen. And he fought back in the play where the guy had a fast break, and he went back and pinned it off the backboard and got the possession back for Alabama. And that really showed me everything that I needed to see with Brandon Miller. I was already sold on him. I think he's a heck of a talent. I think that this is a perfect fit to go along with LaMelo Ball. And I think that Charlotte, they're not going to be they're not going to be dangerous. I think that they are still probably competing for definitely a 7 for AC, but I think that they're going to be exciting. I want to see a little bit more of what they do in free agency. I know that they do get back. I think Miles Bridges is set to come back, and he was playing at a high level there. Then he got into some off the court issues and things like that, and that kind of derailed his career a little bit. So I think he'll be back, obviously, with a fresh mindset there. So that's certainly going to help him. But I like what Jordan has done here, before he goes ahead and gives up his majority share here. Brandon Miller, he would be the consensus number 1 pick in any other draft. It just happens that he fell into a draft with Victor Wembanyama here. And in a lot of ways, it might be a good thing for him because it takes a lot of the pressure off of him. I think that he can really come into this situation. He's going to have to contribute from day one. And here's a guy, like I said, he's 6'9". He should be able to play just about any position defensively. So you're not going to have to really worry about him getting caught into some switch mismatches and things like that. Probably needs to put on a little bit more bulk and strength, I would say. But for the most part, I think he's going to be an outstanding player. Next up, you have the Blazers picking up Scoot Henderson. And I will say this about the Blazers. I think the Blazers quietly had one of the best drafts in this draft. Not only did they get him, but they got Chris Murray. And if you remember, Chris Murray, his brother actually plays for San Antonio. Okay. So his brother was an all rookie player. And so Chris Murray, I think, is going to be an outstanding play here because his brother, Keegan Murray, he was the most NBA ready last year and he showed it as a rookie. And Chris Murray, this guy is going to be tough. Man, he's a third year breakout earned here spot, or a third year breakout, really, is what he had. He was the first team all Big Ten. He was an All American honors in this, averaged 7 and a block there and an assist a game. And like I said, this guy is incredible. He's very smart, terrific glue guy here. I think that he's going to be an excellent two-way stretch player. And this is exactly, and I mean exactly, what you would need to keep Dame Lillard engaged. They're going to be young, but they're going to compete very well. And with Scoot Henderson, the one thing I love about this guy, when you look at some of his tape, and I'm going back to his G League experience where he took on um, Victor Wembanyama, you saw a guy that did not back down. And this guy is tough. He competes very, very hard. And I love the fact that with him, his defense is really his calling card. He has terrific athleticism as well. He loves to play the passing lanes, terrific with help side blocks. He's 6'2", but to me, he plays like he's 6'7" out there, and I love that about him. Um, he's one of those guys where he has everything that he needs to possibly be the offensive rookie of the year. And if there's one comparison that I can give Scoot Henderson, which is a terrific comparison, he is a lot like Russell Westbrook. And that is, if you know Russell Westbrook and you've loved his game, this is a guy that you never have to worry about what he's going to do when he comes into the arena because you know he is going to give you max effort. And that is what you're going to get from Scoot Henderson. I think that that is definitely a spark to go along with Dame, Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant. Listen to me. Portland is my surprise team in the West. I'm telling you guys, they still have some free agency money out there that they can go out there and find some people to go with Damian Lillard. I think that they're probably a big man away here. Maybe they go out and get a guy like Christian Woods to come over there. I think that his time probably in Dallas is come to an end. We'll go over that when we get to Dallas and what they did in the draft. But man, I loved what the Blazers did here. Next up, the Rockets and Pistons. They take the Thomas twins or the Thompson twins. So you have Amen Thompson and Azure Thompson, both playing for Overtime Elite. And the one thing about them is this, they played with such speed and just ferocity. I mean, these guys are perfect for teams that want to run. And I think you're going to get that in both situations. Detroit, you're looking at playing with Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham when he's healthy, and Jalen Duran, who is a terrific big man out of Memphis. I loved him personally. I think he hit a little bit of a rookie wall, but I think you're going to see this guy essentially take off this year. But these two, to me, are some of the best wing players that you can possibly find. Especially with Azir. Azir reminds me a lot of what Jimmy Butler does as far as being very focused in the passing. And he's like a longer version, kind of like a Shea Gillis Alexander or a Markel Fultz, excuse me. So you're getting a guy that can be a primary ball handler, and he's just a hooper. You know what I mean? Like when you think about like what Shea Gillis Alexander and Marcus or Markel Fultz, excuse me, does, they're hoopers, man. Like they can get you. Some nights it might be they're shooting 3-pointers. Some nights they're slashing. Some nights they're mid-range assassins there. So it's like so many different things that they can beat you with on the court. And I think that's appropriate when you look at Azir. Like I think that the Pistons are getting a guy that's going to put a lot of pressure on the rim in so many different ways. And with his brother in the Rockets, I love that situation because you're getting a guy that is perfect for the type of system that they're wanting to play. They're going to want to run. They have Jalen Green out there. They have Porter out there. They've got Sagoon out there. There's talk that they might actually get Brooke Lopez out there. This guy reminds you a bit of what Ja Morant and Ben Simmons has from an athletic standpoint. And that's pretty scary. When you got a guy like that that is coming downhill like that, I think Coach Nduke is going to have a terrific time coaching this guy up. The former Celtics coach, by the way, who did get that job. I think that you're going to love this guy. The basketball IQ is definitely there defensively. He's a guy that loves to play defense as well. Terrific picks on the 4 and 5 picks. I think that those were nailed perfectly. Next up, you have the Magic, and they picked up Anthony Black. Man, I love this guy. And you're going to hear me say this a lot with the loves, but I love Anthony Black. I love his game. He's listed at 6'5", but to me, he plays like he's like 6'9", 6'10". He is a terrific on-ball defender. And the one thing I love about him is his willingness to pass the ball and set up teammates, and his athleticism is scary, man. Like it reminds you a lot of kind of what Josh Giddey has, where Josh Giddey is able to pretty much get to places on the floor. He's always looking for you, always makes the right pass. Like I think he's going to make an immediate impact with the Magics. I think that Pablo Banchero is going to love this guy at the guard position. And if they have missed on Jalen Suggs, they definitely made up with it with this guy right here. I loved his tape. I loved everything about his tape coming out of Arkansas, man. I think that he was outstanding with what he was able to do. Next up here, guys, you had Tyler Hendricks. And so Tyler Hendricks was a guy that you mainly see him play a lot of basketball when it came down to the NIT. I think that's where you got a chance to see him. Played for UCF, and he was a player that I think rose up the draft board, so to speak. And I think when you look at what he presents, he's 6'10", 215 out of Central Florida, and he was all ACC. Here's a guy that averaged 15 points a game, 7 rebounds, an assist, and a block a game. 34 games as a freshman he played. He shot 47.8%, 39.4 from three-point land, and that was on 4.6 attempts. So that tells you that he's a willing three-point shooter. But the one thing about him is that this guy plays with a high motor. He's more like, I would say, like a John Collins or a Jaren Jackson Jr. He's going to be able to shoot the three ball. He can handle the ball on the perimeter. And I think that his perimeter game is a lot better than what it actually shows on tape. Like, I think that he's a lot better than what it has shown. Like I said, a lot of people thought that, maybe this guy might be a mid to late, but he ultimately moved up because of his upside and the fact that when you look at his tape, he's terrific, man. He defends the rim, perfect at spacing the floor. And I think that this is an outstanding pick here from Danny Ainge to pair this with Laurel Marketing, to pair this with that terrific center that they got last year, to go along with Colin Saxton. Quietly, Utah is building up something here. And this is what Danny Ainge did with Boston. He's starting to put his finger touch here on Utah. Terrific pick there. The Mavericks. Okay, so the Mavericks first went with Cason Wallace, the ball hawk guard out of Kentucky. When you look at his tape, this guy plays terrific as far as on ball defense. He's always playing the passing lanes and things like that. But he was eventually traded off later in the round to OKC for the 7-1 Derek Lively II out of Duke. So I like this in the sense that here's a guy. He was an All-American coming out of high school, so a McDonald's All-American. He started 24 out of the 34 games here. The 5.2 points at 65%, 5 rebounds a game. He's a bit raw, but more importantly, he was an ACC defensive team. He was on that team, and he was on the all freshman team as well. He's recorded at least 5 blocks on 5 different occasions for Duke. So that lets you know that he is a terrific defender and a rim protector. He's an easy lob target. I just talked about how he can defensively help you as an anchor here. Has the long wingspan here. I think he's going to be a perfect fit for the pick and roll, which is what? That's exactly what Luka Doncic, and if you get Kyrie back, they like to do a lot of pick and roll sets sometimes when things break down. There is going to be a bit of ISO ball, but because of that, when the defense does collapse, I think you're going to be able to throw this up to Lively, and he's going to be able to make a lot of plays at the rim. He really reminds you of what Nick Claxton is or Willie Collins-Steins is, and that was a player that actually used to play for Dallas. So I think that this fits probably a little bit more of what they want to do. I think Christian Woods maybe was a little bit more of a tougher fit for Dallas because you're looking at a guy that essentially needed the ball. He was more of a perimeter threat. And I think now you're looking at a guy that doesn't need the ball in his hands. And maybe that's what the Mavericks were quietly wanting to think here. And also, too, they were looking to shore up their defense. And I think that they did that with this trade. And then with the Thunder, they just got richer to me. The Thunder have so much talent. You get a guy here that probably is going to be a backup point guard for you. Here is a guy that has quietly, he's 6'4, 193. He's already at an NBA level with a combo guard comparison here. He's a guy that is a 3 and D guy for sure, but more importantly, he is a defensive master. And I think that that is what OKC needs at this point. They have so many ways that they can carve you up on the offensive end, but defensively, when you look at what they give up a lot of OKC games are they're high scoring games and you need somebody to defend at a high level. This guy reminds you a little bit of Drew Holiday for the Milwaukee Bucks. And you know how good Drew Holiday is. This guy should be a pro's pro from day one. Perfect two-way combo guard. I think an excellent fit for OKC. I can't argue with that trade there. I think that it works out well for both. Next up, you have the Magic here who took Jet Howard. Jet Howard is a very good pick here because he is the son of Jawan Howard, 6'8" forward, another big that they can kind of throw out there to go along with what they already have. Remember, they've already given up Aaron Gordon. They do have Carter, who they did get over from the Chicago Bulls, playing their center position. And so you have this young man here coming in. He has terrific footwork already. He is a terrific three-point shooter as well. He can catch and shoot. He's a great standstill shooter, terrific off the pump fake and drives into the mid-range floaters. Like there's so many things that he does well on the offensive end that's great. The one thing that I would say is a knock on him is probably that he does not rebound it at a high level at his height. But in comparison, you're looking at a guy that is more like a Tim Hardaway Jr. or like Chandler Parsons. If you remember him, Chandler Parsons was very tough before injuries kind of slowed him down. I mean, he was having some stellar play when he was back with the Rockets. Like he was super, super good, but injuries kind of slowed him down. So I think that's a very good pick here for Orlando. Moving forward in the draft, another guy that I circle here is Jordan Hawkins at the 14th pick. The Pelicans did themselves a great service by going out and getting Jordan Hawkins. I think that Jordan Hawkins is one of the best shooters in this draft. He reminds me a lot of what Ray Allen was. And I think that if they are able to get Zion Williams back and he's healthy and he's able to be dominant on the post and really attacking the rim and he stays healthy, the Pelicans are thinking that he's going to draw a lot of attention. They're going to have CJ McCollum out there. They're going to have Hawkins out here. You're going to have Brandon Ingram out here. There's so many different shooters and ways that now the Pelicans can hurt you, and they're really turning more into an inside-outside team. And so I like this pick when you pick up a guy like Jordan Hawkins. I think that he will be able to immediately fit. His skill set reminds you a bit of Klay Thompson. So he might actually be not just a role player, but he might be a star in a couple years. So just, put that in mind. He reminds you a little bit of Klay Thompson. And if you go back and look at some of his tape, he also reminds you of another UConn great, and Richard Hamilton. Next up, this is where the draft got really interesting. You had the Lakers picking up Jalen Hood-Schifino, who was the Big Ten, I think, freshman of the year, if I'm not mistaken, for Indiana in his lone season there, or all Big Ten. Yeah, all Big Ten freshman of the year, 13.5 points per game, 4 rebounds a game, 3.7 assists a game. And you're looking at a guy that he can run an offense. He's 6'6". He is a pretty good combo guard. He's going to remind you a little bit of what Spencer DeWitt does, a little bit of kind of a Bradley Beal with the way he's able to slash and kind of knock down shots at times. His size could be a little bit of a hinderer there. He's more of a passer and less of a three-point shooter. So he's kind of more of like just a scorer or, slasher type. Now that might work, especially in the future for the Lakers. I think that it's definitely some added energy and some insurance policy, especially if, they're going to lose D'Angelo Russell. If they lose Hachimura, here's a guy that's going to be able to step in. And especially if they lose Austin Reeves, like he's really going to be big. But more importantly, the Lakers are getting some of their future and youth back. And I think that this is a good piece for the Lakers to move forward with this, to build up their team in later stages when Anthony Davis and LeBron James ultimately exit. Next up, another pick that I think was terrific, and that's Jaime Jaquez at 18. Jaime Jaquez is a guy that I have watched at UCLA compete at a very high level. This guy was up there with the consensus player of the year. He competes at a high level, 17 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, a steal a game in 37 games in 22-23. Personal story with this guy, I got a chance to watch him in the Drew League, and it was in St. Bosco High School is where this was, and it was in the Drew League. He had a heckling fan out there, and he was shooting free throws, and I remember he smiled at the guy, and he pointed to his number, and he said, "You talking to me?" Kind of like, he didn't say that, but he was like, "To me?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, you." And he quietly goes up to the line, knocks down a couple free throws, and he went on to drop like 18 points in that game and had like 6 rebounds and a couple assists or something like that. But his demeanor and toughness is really what I saw. And I was like, man, he is a perfect fit for the Miami culture. Like, perfect. I was thinking going into this thing, I was like, Bulls, or it'd be Miami, right? Those are two tough teams that I think play some good defense. And I was like, that's it. And he ended up being a Miami Heat. I think that if he were on the Miami Heat last year, I think they would have got another game in the NBA Finals. I'm just being honest with you. The way he competes on the defensive end, his ability and size and strength to actually finish at the rim makes him tough. You're looking at a guy that he reminds you a lot of what Rudy Hachimura is. And you saw what Rudy Hachimura meant to the Lakers. Without Rudy Hachimura or Ru Hachimura, they just they don't go anywhere, right? They needed that impact, and Jaime Jaquez can be that impact, and I think he can be an every night impact. I don't think it's far fetched to say not only does he get minutes, but he might actually end up starting in a lot of cases. And it wouldn't surprise me if he becomes a bona fide starter in this league very soon. I think he's all rookie everything. Like, this guy is one of those guys, when you look back at the end of this draft, you're going to say, this is one of the best players in this draft. Next up, let's looking at the Rockets picking Cam Whitmore. And Cam Whitmore was a guy that was the player of the year in the Big East. You know, this on tape in games, like, he looked really good. He helped Villanova to some big wins and things like that, and just slid down the lottery. Like, I'm not sure what happened when you look at it. Some people said it was the workout. Some people said it was the energy level. He wasn't as engaged, but he's 6'8" wingspan, and his ability to score, his ability to impact the game. I mean, time will only tell, but he could actually be a star caliber player. We're looking at a guy that might be along the lines of like a Jay Crowder or like a Miles Bridges, is what he really shows. And I think that this is a good pick for the Rockets. I think this is a perfect pick. I think he's going to get out there in a system where he's going to be able to run. Um, he loves to attack the rim, and when I say he attacks the rim, he attacks the rim like the rim did something to him. Like, if you go back and look at the tape, that's the way he plays, and I'm like, I love that angriness. I think that that's what the 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 Rockets are going to need to change culture. So I think it's a big pick. Interesting that he fell that far down the draft. I'm not sure why, but that I think that was very interesting. The most interesting thing that I think happened in the first round. Nets pick up Noah Clowney, and then they pick up Dariq Whitehead. So with Noah Clowney, I liked him a lot. I thought that he was one of the most consistent there in Alabama. Showed that he had the ability to step out from time to time to shoot the ball. 22 points, 5 threes, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Man, talk about, that was his career highlight right there. So you compare that with what they have with Mikal Bridges, Cameron Thomas, which I think they're going to bring back. Um, he reminds you a lot of what Jared Allen is, as far as the type of on the ball defense that you're getting. He reminds you a little bit of what John Collins is for Atlanta, with the way he's able to kind of slash and catch lobs and things like that. Um, he's definitely going to be a guy that he can switch out in space. Excuse me. I think that his jumper probably needs a little bit more developing, and he's going to get a chance to get that. He's going to get a chance to get all the playing time in the world. But this was a good pick. I think it's a solid pick here. I think the Nets are moving on brilliantly here. I think that they needed some bigs to go along with Nick Claxton, who they may, or may not bring back. But I think that that was a huge pick for them. And that's pretty much what the Nets did. They went big with both him and Dariq Whitehead as well. And so the Nets, I like what they had to do here. Now kind of looking a little bit further into the draft here. The Kings, not so much here with what they had. I know they traded it away to the Mavericks. But the Grizzlies, this is another one that I circled. They had Marcus Sasser from Houston, but they traded that on to the Pistons. But I thought it was initially a good pick. That was an interesting trade there in the first round. I think towards the end of the round, I think was more interesting too, with the Pacers picking up Julian Strasser there out of Gonzaga. Yeah. So he's 6'7", 208 pounds, out of Gonzaga. Guy was a big time shot maker for them, 15.5 points and 5 rebounds a game. Going over to Denver, I think Denver did a great job here, because now they essentially have shown themselves that if Bruce Brown decides to leave, they have some insurance policy here. And I like what they did there by picking him up. You're getting a guy that is a spot up, shooting skills are proven. He isn't a liability on the defensive end there. It's tough to gauge what he can do from beyond the arc, but I think that he's going to be fine there. I think he does evolve as a defender here. And I think that he's a guy that he's going to be a terrific role player for them. And I see him being a lot like a Bruce Brown type of player. So I liked what Denver did towards the end of the round here. I think that that was very admirable. Um, the Pistons already hinted on what they got with Marcus Sizer there. The Clippers at the end of the round picking up Kobe Brown. He was pretty interesting. I got a chance to watch him a little bit in the ACC tournament there for Missouri. 4-star recruit out of high school, 6'7" wing, plays a little bit inside, a little bit outside. He reminds me a lot of kind of what Marcus Fizer was back in the day. Um, this is going to be an interesting pick for me. He could be like a Jeff Green type of player. Um, Not a lot of people are thinking he's going to be an impact early on, but I think that that may not be necessarily the deal because you know how injury plagued the Clippers are. So this actually might turn out to be a valuable pick for them because I think he might actually get a lot of playing time. But when he's on, he's on. I mean, I will tell you that because he did have a 2020 performance as well, where he had the 20 points and 20 rebounds. So, I mean, the guy can put up scoring numbers and he can be a defender and get boards for you. I mean, he's just got to embrace a little bit more of the 3-and-D type role, and that might be something that the Clippers would definitely want to hold on to. Kind of briefly going through a little bit here of the second round. One thing that is to note out of the second round is the 49th pick here with the Cavaliers picking up Amani Bates, or I think that's how you say his name, but he's out of Eastern Michigan. If you remember, this guy was on the Sports Illustrated cover as one of the most coveted players in all of college basketball. Didn't quite work out so much for Memphis. Ended up going over to Eastern Michigan here. But the Cavs might have gotten something for this value at the 49th pick. Here's a guy that's 6'9" with his frame. I think he's going to have to get a little bit bigger here, but he does have a little bit of a mid-range prowess here. He's going to have to be able to shoot the ball. I think that that's one of the places where the Cavs really struggle is trying to find offense as far as shooting the ball. And the Cavaliers, if you look at them on paper, everything works out for them metrically. Like it looked really good. But then when they got into game situations, it kind of fell apart. And so you're hoping that this guy is going to be the difference. I think that really him being comfortable is going to help with his consistency. Here's a guy that he has all the tangibles. He's only 19 years old, so he's a bit raw. He's going to remind you a little bit of like a Brandon Ingram. And I think that that's kind of what they are looking for if they can get this guy there. He averaged like 9 points a game as a freshman at Memphis. And, he was 19.2 points per game at Eastern Michigan, shooting on 40.5% and 33% from deep. So Cleveland's looking to possibly have gotten the steal in the second round, in my opinion. Next up, the Thunder at pick 50, Keontae Johnson. Okay, so this guy, man, he was super, super, super impressive. When K-State was making their run, you kept seeing that they kept running this backdoor play, and this guy was having all these spectacular dunks and things like that. Averaged 17 points a game, 6 rebounds a game, 51% shooting. He was basically the centerpiece of Kansas State Elite Eight run. Like he was that guy. He can shoot the three ball. He shoots it well with a hand in his face too. So under duress, he actually shoots better, in my opinion. He has the ability to draw fouls, right? Like that is definitely one of the traits that got them to the Elite Eight. I'm talking about Kansas State because he was able to be physical there. Um, he's effective on the defensive end as opponents only shot 32.6% from the field. Okay, so when he's defending you, only 32% is the makeable on him. And that's outstanding. And this is a person that loves defense. That is outstanding. Um, now, the one thing about him, he doesn't have a whole bunch of what you would call strength to his game. He's going to be a little bit more of a multi-dimensional scorer. So you're thinking um, more like kind of like a Tracy McGrady, right? There's not one thing that Tracy McGrady necessarily did well. When you look back at what Tracy McGrady did for the Rockets and the Raptors, um, and Orlando, he's more of like a guy that can catch it on that mid range. Sometimes he's going to get you there. Sometimes he's going to get you on the fast break. Sometimes he's going to catch a lob. Sometimes he might be, filling it from the 3-point land, but he's going to be pretty much all over the place as far as the scorer is concerned at the next level. Um, he's like built like a shooting guard, but I think he's going to have to play a little bit more of a small forward kind of role. So he's going to have to really play a little bit more bigger than what he generally is, but he's fundamentally sound. I think he's a terrific two-way player. And I think he's going to have an outstanding chance to carve out a good role. And we talked about what OKC got from the young man from Kentucky here in round one. I think that him and Cason Wallace on the roster defensively, they're probably going to cause some major fits for a lot of players out there. Like just straight out, I think OKC probably got a bit tougher and they needed that. So I like that. Um, Next up here, this pick really surprised me in round two. And surprisingly, that this guy went so late, but that was Isaiah Wong out of Miami. Okay, so Isaiah Wong was the ACC Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, ACC Player of the Year. I think he was the ACC Freshman of the Year. Um, Finalist for the 2022-23 Jerry West Shooting Guard of the Year, um, and the Lute Olson National Player of the Year award. Like this guy, I mean, he carries so many accolades, and he averaged 16 points a game. Um, they basically made history, making the Final Four for the first time. And yeah, I like Isaiah Wong a lot. I mean, I would love for him to be a bit more assertive. I kept saying that during the NCAA finals. I thought that if he was not assertive, Miami was going to be in trouble. And I mean, this is a good fit for him with the Pacers. Like the Pacers, they need another point guard out there to go along with Tyrese Halliburton. Um, you have Buddy Hield out there. They already have, um, you know, was Benedict Mathurin that they got last year. That's very good, but he's more of like a two guard scorer. And so Isaiah Wong, I think, is going to be an outstanding impact for them with their second unit. And I think at times he's going to be able to step into their first unit because Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, aside from the Clippers, the Pacers might have had one of the most starting lineups in all of the NBA last year because so many people were injured for them last year, and especially from the guard standpoint. So that's why I'm like Isaiah Wong will be terrific, I think, there. Defensively, I think that that's probably where he's going to need to work a little bit more. It wasn't like he got blown by. It wasn't like he was physically taken advantage of. He will compete there. That was a little bit more. I think they played a bit more scheme defense there at Miami. So, I think that his on ball defense is probably going to be challenged a bit more here. But I think that that's definitely a good pickup for the Pacers, a late pickup. Like I like what they did there by picking up Isaiah Wong for sure. The Clippers, a pretty good pick here at 48 with Jordan Miller. That was Isaiah Wong's teammate. He's 6'7, 195 senior there. He played extremely hard. He's a high energy, high motor kind of guy. I think that he's going to be able to carve out a role for himself. He is a clutch scorer. He's not necessarily a great 3-point shooter, and he never really exceeded about 33%, but he plays extremely hard. And he just has a knack for winning plays. Like, period. Like, that's the one thing that I like about him is he's a winner. And Jordan Miller is a winner, period. And so I think that if the Clippers are going to get over that hump, they need a guy like Jordan Miller in the lineup. And like I said, a lot like Kobe Brown, I feel like this young man is going to get a lot of playing time because if Kawhi, Paul George, any of those guys go down, you're going to need some guys to step in. So he could be heavily dependent on immediately to make an impact here. Um, and so, with that being said, guys, that really was pretty much the most notables that I saw here out of the first and second round and kind of recapping. But I think that there's a lot of value in this NBA draft. Um, I feel like the Pacers also got better too with picking up what is it, Drace Walker there from Houston. It's another guy we didn't talk about, but I think he's terrific. And I think he actually gives them some insurance there, especially if they move on from their current big man, Miles Turner, which has been talked about. I think that he would be an excellent replacement there. So that was another great pickup. But and shout out to Grady Dick too for the Rafters picking him up. I think he might be one of the best shooters coming out of Kansas. But yeah, I mean, it was a terrific draft. I think it's one of the deepest drafts. I think that you're going to see a lot of value. I think you're going to see a lot of these guys are going to get some playing time. And in looking at the draft show, I don't think that there was too many like minuses or takeaways from anybody in this draft. And it was so deep that Drew Timmy didn't get picked up. Um, I mean, he's picked up as a free agent now, but he didn't get drafted. Sunoco, who played for Connecticut, he didn't get drafted. Like, man, there were so many good players that didn't even get the call that were really good in college basketball. So that kind of lets you know how deep the talent level is in this one. Um, I'm not willing to say like it's going to be as good as the 96 draft where we have all these Hall of Famers, but I definitely think that we for sure got the generational player for the next generation. And we might have some players that are probably going to carry the torch for quite some time in this league. And so, with that being said, now we'll move over to the final segment of the show really quickly, which is the NBA trades thus far. And mainly, you've been seeing a lot of what has happened with the Chris Paul deal. So, the two trades that I want to talk about are what Boston did All right, guys, we're back here. So sorry about that brief technical difficulty. So we're back. And so, guys, what I was going to say is we're going to talk a little bit here about the NBA draft or trades, actually. So, going back to the NBA trades, um, you first start off with what happened in Boston. And with Boston, Boston essentially gets Kristaps Porzingis, a 2023 first round pick, and they also get a first round pick protected from Golden State. That's a top 4 protected pick. If that so happens, we'll talk about how that really materialized. And then you have the Washington Wizards, who got Tyrus Jones. They got Danilo Gallinari and Mike Musala and a 2023 draft pick, along with Jordan Poole. You had Memphis getting Marcus Smart. And Golden State traded a couple players and a draft pick to get Chris Paul over there. And so, starting with what happened here in completing this particular trade, I think that Washington won this trade, and I also think that Memphis won this trade, and somewhat I think Golden State won in this trade. Washington got a lot of players back. They got Landry Shambert. They got some terrific draft picks. The only thing they don't have is a big man here. They got one of the most steadiest point guards in the league in Tyrus Jones. And the Wizards quietly might get Kyle Kuzma back. You have Jordan Poole coming over there, and he's now going to be a star because he now has to be a starter. You know, it didn't work out with Golden State. I think it's clear that once he got the money, the regression was there. Defensively, he didn't really show up the way Golden State needed. And I think in a lot of ways, you could say that Golden State won because they get a guy that's steady with Chris Paul. Obviously, they're going to have to manage his health. He's going to defend a lot better than, say, what Jordan Poole defended. And so this is a win-win for Golden State because they cleared off some cap space. They got rid of Jordan Poole. There are going to be some major players now in the free agent market as well. And they've cleared up some space to get Draymond Green back. Washington, they're rebuilding, but they got some guys that can immediately contribute right now. And Washington, they're in a good spot. They're in a really, really good spot. They have multiple picks, and they got guys that can win right now. Jordan Poole has won an NBA championship, and he is going to put up a lot of points. He's got some shooters to go along with him. They could get some more wing play back there. They have Daniel Garford over there, who is to me like a lot like a Bobby Portis here. So they got a lot of good stuff in Washington. Phoenix, they get Bradley Beal, they get Jordan Godwin and Isaiah Todd over there. I told you guys how I feel about Phoenix. I think that Phoenix is basically running it back from last year. They're essentially going to get the same type of player that they had before. Um, Grizzlies, Marcus Smart. Outstanding pickup for the Grizzlies. Now, they did give away Tyrus Jones. I don't like that, but they do get Marcus Smart back. You've already said that you're not bringing Dylan Brooks back under any circumstances. Got you. You're getting an upgrade with Marcus Smart for sure. The issue is still going to be this. Ja Morant is out for the first 25 games. You've given away another guard. Okay. Steven Adams is a bit older now at this point in time. So you're kind of wondering how much you have left there. Jaren Jackson still really hasn't addressed a lot of the foul trouble issues. That really scares me with that roster and what they currently have. Man, it's a tough scenario right now. I mean, on paper, when they get everything back together with Desmond Bain, Marcus Smart in the lineup, and John Morant, like they're going to be a bit more feistier than what they were before. But now it's coming down to the depth on Memphis, and I feel like Memphis has given up some of their depth, and they've really just kind of they're going to basically get a player that is, former defensive player of the year. He's certainly going to help them and everything else. He's going to be able to play off John Morant, especially when he's penetrating. You're not going to be able to just sink the lane now because you have Desmond Bain and Marcus Smart out there. But aside from those guys, who else do you have? Will Brandon Clark be able to come back from the knee injury that he had as quickly? I don't know. That's another guy that you're possibly down as well. So I think the same thing kind of remains for the Memphis Grizzlies. They do not have too much depth in the front court. They've given away some depth in the backcourt here. I think that this really could be a hindrance for them. Phoenix, essentially, like I said, they're top heavy. They're not going to go anywhere. They're an injury away. Bradley Beal has only played in 90 games in 3 seasons. Kevin Durant hasn't played a lot of basketball. Devin Booker at times has been in the injury-prone situation as well with a lot of lower leg injuries. That's not a good deal. The Celtics, with Porzingis there, not a great fit because Porzingis, yes, he will give you a bit more size. Yes, he's going to be able to stretch the floor a bit, but Porzingis has not been healthy. There were signs where Porzingis could have been the next guy, but you hope that this doesn't happen to Wembanyama. He had a major knee injury, and Porzingis has never been the same since he left New York after that major knee injury. He has not been the same. And the Celtics really, they've given up some defensive toughness, man. The one thing that they had last year was they had a defensive identity. You lose that with Marcus Smart. That's like losing a Draymond Green because he's been there with Tatum and Brown. You basically broken up your core, and I think that it's going to hurt Boston. I really do. I think it hurts Boston because they're going to get to a point in time in next year's playoff run. He's not going to be there. It's only going to be Jaylen Brown and Tatum, and that's it. And they're not going to have any depth to speak of. Robert Williams, who has played very well over the first couple seasons, but you saw him kind of not regress, but take a little step back because of the injuries that he had to the knee. Like it was very up and down for him. So, yeah, the Celtics, they did themselves a disservice here by trading away Marcus Smart, in my opinion. But those are the trades thus far that have happened, the trades that have been big here in the NBA. Obviously, there's still more trades to come, and there's also the free agency to come as well. So I'm very excited to talk about that here, hopefully going into next week's show. And so we're getting ready to sign off, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulty there, guys, as we had actually lost the recording for a bit here, guys. So I do apologize about that. But we're back and we're finishing up the show. So I want to go ahead and thank the fans out there who have listened to us on a week-to-week basis and helped us drive content to the show. I want to go ahead and thank Anchor for being our platform, which is now Spotify Podcasts. You can check us out there. The links will be in the show note. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check us out at Real Talk Sports with Rico. You can follow us there. And also, too, just check the links as well. But, for myself, this is Real Talk Sports. Rico, guys, I'll see you guys on the next show. We're out. Real Talk Sports with Rico. Peace. Peace out, guys. Peace, peace, peace.